Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Podium Pod, the podcast covering the 2023 FIBA World Cup, brought to you by the Pick and Roll. Head to pickandroll.com.au and subscribe for in-depth commentary and analysis on Aussie hoops. Adam Webster with you again, and I'm joined at this time by my broadcast partner from Clutch Radio, Jacob Dull. It is the third of our four group previews for the FIBA World Cup 2023, where we're covering Group E, Australia's group, and Group F. Jacob, welcome once again.
Good to be back and starting to get exciting now, isn't it? The tournament's really looming on the horizon, very close.
Those warm-up games are very, very close indeed. We're excited to see the Boomers finally strut their stuff in Melbourne. We're going to start with Group E, and we'll start with the Boomers because they're ranked third overall in the world by FIBA. Of course, last time they were fourth. They won the bronze medal in Tokyo, and they have gold aspirations in this tournament. We have obviously talked at length about this Australian team, Jacob, so we won't talk about them for too long on this episode because I feel like we'll be talking about them pretty consistently over the next month. But for you, are there any key call-outs in this group that we need to watch out for as the Boomer squad?
It's an interesting one, isn't it, drawn in Group E, because I don't think there's an easy matchup in this group, and yet the Boomers should still be expected to win every game and top the group. So I think that says a lot about the quality that's in this Boomers squad, no matter which final lineup they land on. But it will be tricky. I don't think it'll be as easy as maybe some people might think.
Well, the major rival in this group is Germany. They are 11th in the world. However, they missed out on the knockout phase in the previous World Cup. They finished third in Group G. They were surmounted by France and the Dominican Republic in that group. So for Germany, they'll be looking to bounce back pretty significantly. They do have some NBA level talent, and they've had a couple of changes to their roster. They have Isaac Bonga, who's played NBA basketball, Dennis Schroeder, and then they have Franz and Mo Wagner from the Orlando Magic, two guys that are showing great talent, young guys that are going to come through and succeed. Say that again. Young guys that are going to come through and succeed the older guard of Dennis Schroeder and Daniel Theis, etc., in this German lineup. So, Jacob, with so much talent, this is definitely the major competitor to the Boomers in this group, right?
100%. I think you're spot on there. And they do have such a nice blend at this tournament. This feels like perfect timing. They've got that experience. They've got a bit of youth coming through. And I think anytime you can build a whole starting five out of players who have been in the NBA, you're in pretty good stead talent-wise. So it'll just be about how they can pull all of those pieces together and make it work. But, I mean, on paper, they've got pretty much every base covered, haven't they?
They're going to be very, very tough to beat. I mean, Franz Wagner is known by many as the most talented player in his draft class. So he will be really tough to beat. Dennis Schroeder is going to command the rock and command this team. They're missing Maxi Kleber, and I think we were talking off air about how there's a little bit of unrest in this particular squad. Does that have the ability to destabilize and result in them missing yet another knockout phase?
It's always a concern, isn't it? Anytime something like that happens. There were some comments in the media between, I think, Dennis Schroeder and Maxi Kleber, and Kleber's just taken himself out of the equation and said, I don't want to be a distraction. I won't be there. So whether that works or not is one thing, but I think Germany will be setting their sights fairly high here in this tournament. They changed coaches after the last Olympics, even though they made their first quarterfinal in almost 30 years. So they clearly have high standards that they're setting, and if they can meet them, they'll be looking pretty good.
That top-end talent for Germany is probably lacking the real stopper on the perimeter because Dennis Schroeder is known as a ball handler and a scorer and a distributor. Franz Wagner's, 6'10", even though he plays a lot of small forward for the Orlando Magic. Daniel Theis is a big man. Isaac Bonga is 6'8", so he's still quite big as well. So could they be, I guess, found out a little bit against the stronger perimeter players in their group and in this World Cup?
Definitely. I think that's going to be a challenge that they're going to have to face. And at times it will have to be guys like Wagner and Bonga who are stepping out and taking on those matchups. And it's not ideal size-wise, as you've mentioned. So there'll be some challenges there out on the perimeter. And that's going to be, I think, the toughest test, especially in a group that, as you say, has some talent on the perimeter.
And speaking of talent on the perimeter, Finland are the third team in Group E. They are ranked 24th in the world, and they are paced by NBA All-Star Larry Markkanen, who plays for the Utah Jazz and had a real breakout season this past NBA season. He was unbelievable and indeed started the All-Star game. So as goes Laurie, so go Finland, I would say, in this group. And it's up to Markkanen to kind of drag them over the line in much the same way that Luka did for his team in the Olympics.
Yeah, it's not unprecedented, is it? It's something it feels like we see every year. There's one of these NBA players just has not a breakout campaign because we knew how good Luka was, we know how good Lowry is, but on the international stage in FIBA basketball, they just sort of put it all together and put a team on their shoulders. And Markkanen's the kind of player who can do that. We saw in the NBA last year, he can score in bunches very, very quickly. And that's the kind of player that can sort of carry a team over the hump in a tournament like this.
And finally, we have the 36th ranked team in the world and one of the hosts for this tournament. This group will be in Japan. You'll be in Japan as well, and Japan will be in this group. Yuta Watanabe is the key for the Japanese team, particularly after the exclusion of Rui Hachimura, who went deep into the playoffs with the Lakers and has chosen not to take his place in this World Cup side. So for this Japanese team, how do they play, or how do they play historically, and what would you like to call out about their ability to be able to disrupt this group?
Yeah, they're a danger team, Japan, because we saw in qualifying and specifically when they played in Melbourne in the FIBA Asia qualifiers that they shoot a lot of threes. They love getting shots up from the perimeter. I think they shot 5 or 6 more per game than the next team in Asia. And if they're hitting, they can be a team that can do a lot of damage. And they do have shooters on this team. You know, Yuta Watanabe, as you mentioned, he's been an elite shooter at an NBA level. Keisei Tominaga did some damage in those games in Melbourne and has proven that he can knock down a lot of shots as well. And Yuki Kawamura, the B League MVP, started the Asia Cup running the show at the point. So they've got those players out on the perimeter that if they're knocking down shots, Japan are going to be a tough team to just roll over.
So that's Group E. Let's talk through the two teams who we think are progressing through to the next round of the FIBA World Cup. For me, Australia has to finish top of this group, particularly if they have any medal aspirations. I feel like you probably are on the same page, Jacob, but who's going to be second?
I think you're right about Australia. First of all, they need to just not breeze through this group, but they need to win every game if they're serious about what they want to do in this tournament. And even though I feel like this is one of the deepest groups in the whole World Cup, I do think it's going to be a little bit boring. I think Germany will be the second team to go through. They've just got that extra depth of talent there, and I think they'll be able to pull it all together and get past Japan and Finland, despite the challenges that they're going to pose.
Well, we disagreed on groups A and B, but we're agreeing on Group E. I think Germany has the talent and the experience to be able to get across Finland and Japan and give Australia a few fits in their group game. I think that's clearly the two teams that will progress through to this next round. We move on to Group F. They are headlined by Slovenia. They are headlined by Luka Doncic, and what a player he is at this international level. He put the team on his back in the Olympics. They're ranked 7th overall in the world right now, this Slovenian team. They do have a little bit more talent under Luka. They've got Zoran Dragic. Goran, I think, is probably past it in terms of international play, so has chosen to sit this one out. And Vlatko Kankar was supposed to be part of this tournament, but he got carted off with a knee injury just a couple of days ago, Jacob.
Yeah, that'd be a big concern for Slovenia because, as you say, Luka has to do so much heavy lifting at times that any extra depth that they can have is really important. But hey, we saw at the Olympics that Luka can just do it all for this team and take them a long way. It was only an all-time performance from Patty Mills that stopped them really from winning a medal in Tokyo. So you can't rule out anything for this team, and that's pretty much purely because Luka Doncic is on the roster.
The second ranked team in this Group F is Venezuela. They're ranked 17 in the world. They seem to be a bit of a mainstay in these sorts of tournaments. Jacob, what do you see from the Venezuelan team across this tournament and their ability to be able to try and take the second place in this group, given that in the previous World Cup in 2019, they finished second in Group A, so they did make it through.
They're an interesting one, Venezuela, because as you say, they're the second highest ranked team in this tournament. And they've got a pretty good track record, but they're not bringing great form into this World Cup. They failed to qualify for Tokyo in the Olympics. They only reached the quarterfinals of AmeriCup in 2022 before they went out to Argentina, who haven't qualified for this World Cup. And they only just snuck through the qualifying phase when the Dominican Republic did them a favor with a couple of results late, and they got through on point differential. So they're an interesting team. They're going to have one of the oldest rosters at the whole tournament if things fall as they should. And will that experience help, or will that age maybe catch up to them finally?
The third team in this group is one that I'm quite happy to talk about because I own one of their jerseys. Georgia is ranked 32nd in the world, and I potentially mistakenly went out and got myself a Goga Batate rookie jersey when he was drafted for my favorite Pacers. And he's now playing for the Orlando Magic. He's now their backup center, so things didn't go to plan, but he's a big presence. He gets a lot of rebounds, and when he jumps down to that G League level, he was getting 20 and 20s there at one point across his first couple of years. So he is very, very capable of putting up big rebounding numbers and cleaning up the glass. And in FIBA play, those players are more favored because of the ability to be able to rebound and block off the rim. So the change in rules suits a guy like Goga.
It does, and as we keep moving through these previews, we're quickly realizing that you need a real focal point at the center in this tournament. The big man talent is just off the charts. So Georgia, if nothing else, they have that. They have their guy in the middle, really tough on the glass, as you say, really skilled, someone who could thrive in FIBA basketball, and they do have a little bit of talent around him as well. You look at their roster. Toko Shengelia, former Brooklyn Net, was their leading scorer in qualifying, averaging just under 20 points per game. So he's someone who can do some damage. And Sandro Mamakulashvili from the San Antonio Spurs.
Well
So
done, Jacob.
they, I didn't feel great going into that one, but I think I've done okay there. Feel free anyone to tell me if I didn't, but they've got some guys who can do some damage, basically, don't they?
And Thad McFadden as well as their point guard. He's 36 years old, so this will be his last international tournament, you would think, but he's been around a very long time, currently playing in the Spanish Liga at the moment. So they at least have their main orchestrator sorted out as well. So, sneaky could be a sneaky good team in this particular group, Georgia, particularly with Venezuela not carrying that strong form into the tournament, as you say. The last team in this group is Cape Verde. They ranked 64th in the world. They were top 4 in Afrobasket 2021. So they've had some good form over recent years. Walter Tavares is probably the name that people may remember from his stints in the NBA. He's played for Atlanta. He's played for Cleveland, and then a bunch of different G League teams, along with currently playing for Real Madrid. So for Cape Verde, Jacob, what would you like to see from this tournament? Is this a matter of staking your claim as a basketball nation and building something that can, be parlayed into Olympics and World Cups of future?
I think there's the chance for them to do that, yeah, and they're coming in with some pretty good form. Qualified ahead of Nigeria, who were the team at the last Olympics who sort of made a little bit of noise, knocking off Team USA in the lead-in. So they finished ahead of them in both stages of qualifying, and now they come into this World Cup with a chance to build from that. And again, we keep on saying it, but in Tavares, they have that center who they can build around. So there's a few pieces there for Cape Verde, as unlikely as it might seem on the surface, that they could do a little bit of damage at this tournament.
So that is Group F: Slovenia, Venezuela, Georgia, and Cape Verde. Jacob, who's making it from this group into the second round?
I feel like we'll both agree that Slovenia will be topping this group. They should be topping this group. I think Luka Doncic would be very disappointed if they didn't top this group. So I see them going through fairly comfortably. And then beyond that, it's a really interesting one, isn't it?
Is
Because
this the weakest group that we have in this tournament?
at first glance, I think it might be. I think so, because there's 3 teams below Slovenia who really could make it through to the second round, but who can't really picture making it much further than that. So I'll take Georgia going through here. I think Venezuela would be the ones that would be expecting to go through in second, but Georgia just have enough of that top end talent there that I think they might be able to sneak through here.
I'm going to be super biased and pick my man Goga Batate as well. I think, Slovenia will finish first in this group, but I think Georgia have the talent to be able to finish second. And, it's really great to see nations like Cape Verde making the World Cup in this instance and, being able to build themselves into a basketball nation in their region as well. So this is what the game's all about. It's growing the game. It's making sure that your country's aware that you're one of the best teams in the world or in your region. And, it's fantastic to see so many great teams from all across the world in this tournament, and we will continue to talk about them for the next few weeks. That's been the Podium Pod. Group E and Group F is done and dusted. One more preview to go with Group G and H, where the podcast covering the 2023 FIBA World Cup, brought to you by the Pick and Roll. Head to pickandroll.com.au and subscribe for in-depth commentary and analysis on Aussie hoops. I'm Adam Webster, and for Jacob Dool, thanks for listening to this preview, and see you again next time.